What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero and Judd Zulgad here at the Metrodome shortly after the Vikings lose 42-20 in a game that was more lopsided than that. If you think about the fact that the Saints had the center just misheard Drew Brees when he's trying to change the play, snaps it to no one, they recover. They get a field goal out of that. Jimmy Graham's just lazy with the football. Good play by Jamarcus Sanford in the early going, but again, gives them 3 points. They try an onside kick and give them the ball near midfield when the Vikings had nothing going offensively. Adrian Peterson pops one run. That's it.
Yep.
It was incredible watching them. When you looked at the stat sheet or at the live scoring, and you see in the fourth quarter the Vikings have 0 net passing yards. I don't know if I've ever seen that in an NFL game.
And the scary thing about it, though, Tom, was there any point in time in this game where you looked out on the field and were surprised by what was happening?
No.
I mean, this is the question last week, I think, that was put to both of us at one point was, perhaps by you, will the Saints score 40? I mean, that was the expectation. They scored 42. They could have scored 56. If they had come out here and played a really, really complete game, Brees could have passed for 500-plus yards. They could have scored 50 or more points, and none of it surprises me, and that's the scary thing about this. This Vikings team, what more is there to say about how bad this season has been, about how bad this team has been? In the locker room today, they can't even go to the old, well, we tried hard, and we came back and made a run. They didn't. Adrian Peterson admitted after the game, wouldn't go too far with it, but he wasn't happy with the performance of some players. Defensively, they didn't play well. Offensively, this thing is just a mess right now.
A couple players just said guys are playing scared out there. What do you have to lose at this point? You're 2-12. Why not just go out and play loose? Instead, you got guys playing tight. I don't know if we saw guys flat out quitting on the field, but I think we saw lazy play. We saw a lot of missed tackles, fundamental breakdowns, just dumb plays. The offense was just, it was abysmal. And the final stat line doesn't even do it justice, because they end up with 207 net yards and 12 first downs. But before the couple of garbage drives they had in the fourth quarter after the Saints had pulled their starters, they had, I think, 5 first downs and around 109 net yards. Those are abysmal numbers. The Saints had 573 yards of offense and 36 first downs. I mean, we know the Saints are probably the second best team in football right now. We could have known that this was going to come. But to just not even be remotely competent, to have an offense that had some of the series that they did where it was just, what are they even trying to do? That's remarkable.
That is now the story of this team, though. They're not competent. They're not any good. 2 things I think we should touch on. One, Christian Ponder. There is, we talked about this on Thursday last week, right? Mm-hmm. How well does Christian Ponder have to play in these last 3 games to just get some confidence, A, in himself, and B, for his teammates? And again today, Tom, and I know this is going to take a while, and he's young, and you can't pull the plug by any means, but I just don't see anything there right now. I don't see a guy who's confident, and I don't know if that's because the parts around him are so bad or if his confidence is just shot.
I think it's a combination of multiple things. I did think it was interesting that Leslie Frazier several times in his post-game media address, without really even being asked directly about it, said, I really want to see him in these last 2 games. It's exactly what we thought it was, which is that you needed to see Christian Ponder just correct some of the mistakes he's making. You didn't need to see him go and light the world on fire. This was ultimately not going to be a referendum on Christian Ponder's career.
Correct.
But this is several bad games in a row. They moved the football the past couple of weeks, except they had a bunch of turnovers. Today, they don't have the turnovers until that last throw up into the corner of the end zone that gets picked off at the end, but they didn't move the football. You'd need to see something here. Otherwise, you're just going to be surrounded by questions. And I'm sure not everybody. There's a lot of people who do believe in Christian Ponder. There's going to be a few people in the organization who go, I don't know about this guy.
And he looks lost. I mean, right now, to me, he looks like a guy who's lost. When he got in there originally against the Packers, for instance, that first game, I saw a guy who was really raw, but looked like he sort of knew what he was doing. To me now, Tom, he looks like the quarterback that we saw in training camp, which was a guy that I think we turned to each other several times down in Mankato and said, what's going on here?
He's missing
He looks
passes.
like he's back to that.
Yeah, he's missing passes. He's getting off his spot in the pocket. He's feeling pressure that's not there. He was under siege. The Saints were still blitzing with 30 seconds to go in the game.
Yes.
And he's hot a lot of the time. That's a rusher that he's responsible for, but there's no rhythm. There were a lot of times. It's everything. The whole thing fits together. The offensive line was not good in this game. Anthony Herrera had a couple of terrible plays. Nobody's getting open. And Ponder, when guys are open, he's missing.
Right. And the team is terrible, so it's hard to say, is this all Christian Ponder? Is it partially Ponder? I would like to see a little bit more confidence there. I would like to see, I think, what you would consider a competent game, because that's what we're not getting right now. The other thing is Leslie Frazier. Where do we stand with him? I'm pretty convinced Ziggy Wolf is not going to pay 3 guys to coach this team next year.
Right.
Brad Childress, Les Frazier, and then if he fires Frazier, a new coach. However, today and the first quarter in Detroit were the type of games, Tom, where if you're going to see a change, that's what causes changes, right?
Yeah,
I mean that's the type that just
you become concerned when a team looks just completely unprepared, and that's I think what we've seen here. The offense today looked unprepared, and I'm somebody of the mind, based on everybody I've talked to, players and people in the front office and everybody else. Everybody really believes in Bill Musgrave, believes he's going to be good, and he's not working with much. Yes, he has Adrian Peterson,
right.
He has Percy Harvin. What did the Saints do today? They took away Harvin. They gave up one run to Peterson, but otherwise they locked down in the box, didn't let him get out of the gate. So you do those two things well, there's no one on the perimeter who's going to hurt you. Ponder, when he had tight ends open in the flats and he had some intermediate passes, he's missing all of those. So suddenly you just don't have a whole lot. No coordinator can make up for some of those sorts of deficiencies.
And Ponder can't either. That's part of the problem for him. I'm just saying he scares me a little bit in what I've seen. But you're right. There's no deep threat whatsoever. But Frazier, I mean, today is the type of game where if you see that again in these next two games or one of the next two games,
then who knows?
Then I think all bets are off then. I really do.
And you asked Ziggy Wilf about it in the hallway, and he said?
He said that he will have no comment about anything to do with the team till after the season, but they do plan on talking to the media after the season. So, and to me, that's the right thing to say. I mean, he can't watch this team go into Washington next week and get potentially drilled, which I don't think they will, but they might. And then if, let's say they come here, lose their last game on January 1st to the Bears, well, how can Ziggy Wilf sit there today in good conscience and say his head coach is completely safe? He can't. We got to see what happens.
You're suddenly, and I think based on how the tiebreakers are, the Vikings would have to lose 2 and the Colts would have to win 2 more in order for them to move into the #1 pick. But you're staring down the barrel of potentially tying for the worst record in the entire NFL.
Very much so.
That's frightening. I think on any level. You're in the first year of a program, you have a lot of turnover. There's a lot of people in the Wilf series I know right now saying this roster needs to be completely blown up and built up from the bottom, which they've already begun to do. We've already gone halfway there. Now the question is, though, do you have a sort of balance between the coaching staff and the personnel side to understand about how to go about this? Because this is rock bottom. Yes, they've had a bunch of injuries, but they also look like they've got major staff problems. I've written about it plenty of times now. I think the defensive staff gets cleaned out. They probably change systems there. You don't want to take everything and blow up the offensive side of it too if you're Frazier, but I don't know. 2-14 I don't think anything's off the table.
The one thing I think the Welsh have to think long and hard about, and we've talked about it before, a GM. I mean, to me, that's the wild card. To me, it's not you come out the day after the season and you fire Les Frazier. It's potentially you name a GM and have that guy run the football operation. But the scary thing to me about this year, other than getting Ponder playing time, what has this year done for this franchise? Where's the good? Where's the building? Where's anything?
Judd Sullivan's playing a lot better. He's got a bunch of money.
Thanks. Exactly my point. God bless John Sullivan, but that wasn't the goal when 2011 started.
Yeah, there's a few, and you're now, even going into next year's draft, you're still paying for trading a 6th-round draft pick for Donovan McNabb that you're not going to have now. You're trying to build from the youth side of it, but you kept Bernard Berrian around. You kept Cedric Griffin around. And Cedric Griffin at this point, what's the difference between him and Bernard Berrian? Except for the fact that Cedric Griffin flatly refuses to play what they tell him to.
You know what's funny? We tried to talk to Cedric after the game, and
how'd that go?
Around his locker, and it was, I looked at somebody as Cedric was talking, and I mouthed the words, Bernard Berrian. Same guy now. He won't answer questions. He said that he wasn't upset about not playing today. I mean, he did not play on defense. They were up against it at corner.
That's Cedric, though. He's always been that guy.
And he said that it had been coordinated, that he wasn't going to play. And I finally said, Cedric, please explain to us what you mean. He said, why don't you go look up the word coordinated? That was our conversation. It was Bernard Berrian. It was honestly the same guy.
Well, at least something was coordinated for the Vikings today.
And on that note,
he's Judd. I'm Tom. We will see you tomorrow.